welcome everyone, and thank you very much for your time. This is our post-COP25 webinar, and we aim to have a discussion on youth engagement and all the outcomes that have been done in the past Conference of Parties, the 25th Conference of Parties in Madrid a few weeks ago. So let us start with introduction for participants. So first, let me introduce people. I'm John Carl Alonsagay from the Philippines, and I represent the ATO Climate Change Project. So basically, is aimed to promote climate change education in developing countries. So we've been based in 11 countries since 2016. Okay, so Ms. Shreya.
So hello everyone, I'm Shreya. I work for Nepalese Youth for Climate Action. I'm so happy to be here with you all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's proceed to Mr. Viren Mitev of Bulgaria.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I have to thank the Nepalese Youth for Climate Action for inviting me to speak with you. I represent the Ecological Manifesto Manico organization and foundation, which is based in Bulgaria, and it deals mostly with youth training, youth exchanges, and raising awareness on climate and environmental issues among public through the means of art, sometimes through the means of movie screening, doing trainings and workshops. It's a pleasure for me being with you.
Thank you. Ms. Mwanya Kisha from the Philippines.
Wait. Hello. Good afternoon. I am Kisha Mwanya, and I am from the Philippines also. I am representing STEP Philippines, which stands for Sea and Terrestrial Environment. And we aim to strengthen youth force for environmentalism through interactive education, immersion, research, and citizen science here in Central Visayas, Philippines. So thank you for the invitation also.
Thank you, Kisha. Ms. Elizabeth Gulu from Zimbabwe.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Gulu from Zimbabwe, representing an organization called African Youth Initiative on Climate Change in Zimbabwe. This is a continental organization, meaning we also have an African Youth Initiative on Climate Change in most of us African countries. We engage young people into climate-related activities, be it mitigation, be it adaptation, so as to strengthen climate resilience in different parts of Zimbabwe.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Elizabeth. And we would like to ask our dear participants from Nepal, Mr. Suraj Gairi.
His microphone is muted.
Okay,
Hello, everyone.
Okay, I can hear you.
Hello, everyone. It's me, Suraj Gaire, representing NYCA Dang. I'm Program Development Coordinator of NYCA Dang. I'm feeling grateful to be a part of this webinar. And as a part of NYCA, we have been conducting a lots of programs regarding climate change. And we have tried to cover both mitigation and adaptation measures of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Suraj. And we have our friends from the Nepalese Youth for Climate Action. Hello, from there. Good afternoon. You can see there's a lot of you there. So greetings, everyone. Okay, let's start with COP and youth engagement by a presentation by Mr. Viren Mitev of Bulgaria.
let's try the screen sharing first. And you can tell me if I can do it.
Okay. I think it's all good from my side.
Okay, you can hear me as well. So, first of all, I'll start with a brief overview of youth engagement, and then I'll just pinpoint the most important parts in which I managed to take part during this COP25. So the International Youth Climate Movement, or UNGO, was formed back in December 2005. It is youth in general is taking part in COP negotiations and climate negotiations on the side of UN since 2 years before the first COP was formed and organized. It's around from 1992, and if you remember, there is a famous video of one little girl, Suzuki, which now she's a grown-up lady and she's running the Suzuki Foundation. But why she's not that famous as Greta, you understand a little bit later. So it is also when the first COI, the Conference of Youth in 2005, takes place. In 2009, during COP15, the UNFCCC Secretariat recognizes youth as an official observer constituency. This means that UNGO turns out to be the umbrella organization which gathers all youth engaged organizations under its wing, and it's representing them in front of the UN. What else? In 2015, the idea of LCOI is born as well. This means that local conferences of youth are being organized around the world as preparation for the COI and COP conferences. The primary objectives for LCOIs are capacity building and policy training for young people. Nowadays, UNGO consists of around 25,000 members, which, if you think about it, it's the number of the members of UNGO is much more than few of the smallest island countries. So what this means is that, for example, it is very accurate that UNGO has its right as constituency on the table when climate negotiations are happening. Then, of course, you have the pre-COPs and LCOIs. I spoke about them. Why I have divided strikes and climate strikes? It is because, for example, this is the climate story that I can tell. There was a strike during COP25 inside the venue where the negotiations were happening. And here I think we have to make a crucial differentiation between what the youth and UNGO is doing during COPs and LCOIs and what the youth on streets is doing. So first of all, youth during COIs and COPs, it is mostly about policy making and drafting documents and agreements, and it's about mostly engagement of youth one-on-one with delegates, official delegates from country representatives. While people or young people on the streets, when they're doing climate strikes, when they're doing petitions, when they're doing protests or surveys, they're doing raising awareness. So I think this is one differentiation that we have to keep in mind. Also, I find really important that youth engagement should be, of course, based on science and scientific knowledge. The most important parts in which at least I managed to take place while COP25 was happening was the intergenerational inquiry in front of the UN Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, the Senior Director for Policy and Program Coordinator of UN Climate Change. There I managed to speak about the importance of integration, especially for countries such as Bulgaria, and how when youth from the country go abroad, study and do exchanges, and vice versa, youth from outside the country are coming into the country for studying and doing exchanges. It's helping the country to reorganize and to create totally new culture of young people. For example, we have in Europe the so-called Erasmus Plus program for youth exchanges, and recently we had 1 million babies born through mixed marriages between people that were studying abroad through this country, through this program. So the point here is that I strongly believe that these 1 million new babies, this 1 million new youth, all these people that were doing exchanges, they are creating totally new culture of people and way of thinking and caring about the nature, for which I'm very, very positive and optimistic. The next event that I managed to take place, high-level intergenerational dialogue on youth and NDCs with the COP presidency, the UNFCCC, Secretariat, NDC Partnership, and IPCC Secretariat. Also, UNGU managed to organize a meeting with the President of the UN General Assembly, which again shows how well UNGU and the youth organizations are represented inside UN and the UN negotiations. And why I say it again, it's important to distinguish the two types of youth involvement and action. I say it also because, for example, UNGU have worked more than 15 years to have this position and to even make it stronger. They want to be the first on the table to set the agenda, and then all the countries and delegate to discuss this agenda, which is a very important step. But for example, this strike that happened inside the venue of COP in Madrid is threatening this position that UNGU already has. And it's important to understand when and how the youth should be involved. Of course, last but not least, all of us, all from the Youth for NDCs program, we were involved in many working groups in different subjects. We were learning about the subjects, we were improving the documents that are written, and then we were presenting them among the others and among higher officials. At the end, I would like to finish with the future goals. Of course, all of us that we are involved with the Youth for NDCs, we will continue working in our countries to improve our NDCs. You know, 2020 is very important year for the NDCs, and each country should update and present their NDCs at the end of the year at COP26. One movement or campaign that arose recently was Join the Countdown. It is based on the project Drawdown, which is a scientific project. They try to find key improvements in 5 different areas where humanity can focus and can solve or improve those problems and help for the quickest solution of reducing gas emissions. Also, we have to keep in mind that 2020 is the year when the Earth Day turns 50 years. And I think we can engage in many different ways for this anniversary and celebrate it. And last but not least, of course, Planet for the Planet. It's a campaign for planting trees. By far, I think is the direct and most efficient way in which we can also help for reducing carbon emissions. Also media, what I'm trying to do now, it is to connect and contact all UN related organizations and all media and youth related organizations, and to make an interview for them and to explain what is COP, why youth engagement is important, to present my participation and to try to engage more people with the subject. So I hope that it wasn't too long. This was my brief intervention. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mito. Okay, so that was a very informative presentation about the youth engagement in COP25. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so let us proceed with the next presentation from Ms. Elizabeth Gulugulu from the African Youth Initiatives on Climate Change in Zimbabwe. Her presentation will be about youth-led climate momentum around the world, and we have allocated 5 minutes for her presentation.
Thank
Ms.
you very
Elizabeth?
much.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the invitation and for allowing me to speak to other young people around the world. My topic is very broad, but I will try to go straight to the point because my colleague Vikran has mentioned a lot about Jungo, a lot about Fridays for Future campaigns. So I'll just try to summarize everything. So 2019 has been a very busy year and a most active year where most leaders, they were in, I can say, in a panic mode because they're being given pressures from young people on how best, on emergency, climate emergency, and how they should act fast through policy formulation. Not only policy formulation, but at times you get to find out that some of the conferences they attend, young people, they are not present. They are not given the chance to attend, and they make decisions on behalf of us young people. So they've been given so much pressure. I mean, starting from Fridays for Future campaign, which is led by Greta Thunberg. You all know her. A lot of pressure has been given to our leaders on how best they should take climate-related issues very, very important, because we have realized how it has affected this generation, and not only this generation, but if we affect this generation, it means the future generation will also be compromised. So we have realized that most young people have been working in silos, and for us to fulfill the climate agenda, we need to break those silos, come together as one. One good example of breaking the silos is this meeting. We have managed to break in silos. We work in our different capacities, different parts of the world. But if we want to fulfill the agenda of climate emergency and this climate crisis, we need to come together, put our minds together and find out possible solutions on how best we can adapt and mitigate to the effects of climate change as young people and make our communities more resilient. So here in Zimbabwe, as young people, we've been taking a part in climate education, which feeds into Action for Climate Empowerment, which is one of the discussions that was being discussed at COP in Madrid. And how we have done this is we've been trying to engage young people from certain age, from primary, tertiary education. Some of them, they already have clubs, environmental clubs that are functioning, but they are not yet to the point where they want to be. And it is our responsibility as young people to improve their capacity through education, trying to simplify the information in a way that they understand, because we also understand that climate change is a lot of technical stuff, a lot of scientific stuff, which a layman cannot simply understand. So our role is to simplify that information and engage young people so that they understand what climate change is, what the effects of climate change are and how best they can take part in reducing their carbon footprint. This could be through tree planting at their schools, how they can adapt improving food security in their communities through fish farming activities, and other projects that we have been trying to implement in different schools, like biodiversity conservation, where we have realized that wetlands, they play a part in absorbing carbon. So we've been trying to conserve and protect the biodiversity in different areas. Here in Africa, where I stay, youth constitutes of 66 to 67%. And we have realized that young people, they have a high population. And each and every project being introduced by different governments and ministries should engage and involve young people for us to meet our target as a globe, which is to reduce our carbon emissions by 45% by 2030. And we've also realized the importance of creating spaces for youth, which is through research. Young people, they also need their safe spaces to do research, climate research, to come up with ideas, brainstorming, climate communication. Not only that, but on how best we can empower, educate each other on the activities that we'll be doing at these international platforms, be it negotiations, the topics that we'll be negotiating, so that they also understand, and when they have the time and when they have the opportunity to also participate on global platforms like these, they know what exactly they're getting themselves into, and they know exactly what they'll be talking about. So in short, this is what I can say. I don't want to go on and on talking, because I know some other guys who cover most of the stuff that I've left. But thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And thank you all guys for paying attention to what I was saying. And ciao.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for this wonderful speaking and also talking about the African Youth Initiatives and climate change. I think Joanne is out of internet now, so I will be
Oh, sorry.
reading the.
I just
Okay, yeah, okay.
yes.
Yeah, so now I will be speaking on the youth-led climate momentum in Nepal. So here, sharing the screen. I'm not being able to share my screen. Vidin, can you please stop
Can you?
sharing your screen here? Anyone?
Okay. Wait. I'll try to. Wait. Can you do it now?
Yeah.
Can you do it now? Or okay.
So I'll be talking more on the youth-led climate change momentum in Nepal. So what NYC has been doing since years, it's like it is the network of youth. NYC works to empower, mobilize, inspire, and empower the Nepalese youths in climate action, so that we can build a future that is economically prosperous, environmentally sustainable, and socially just. So I have a small journey video of NYCA, which I would want to share here, which will explain more in details.
I think I can't share the video. It's on the other file, I think.
Yes. ब्याक गर्छु ल भयो So in NYC, we form a network of youths who work for youth, and now there are around 12 chapters across country, which I wanted to show the works of youth of NYC, done by NYC in a short video, but due to the unstable internet connection, I was not able. So sorry for that. And talking about further about our engagement in COE and COP, we were there through the Youth Climate Scholarship, and we were a group of 14 different peoples in which we presented actively by participating in different campaigns and organizing different events. I was also presenting the closing statement of Yongo, in which I was representing the voice of vulnerable nations like Nepal, who lies at the frontline effects of climate change, and we were speaking the voice of vulnerables in the closing plenary. And after the COE and COP, we look forward in working in these specific points. Just yesterday, we had an post-COP sharing program through our regular green discussion series, where me and our National Climate Change Focal Point, Mr. Maheshwar sir, we were presenting on the issues that were highlighted in COP and how we can work together and how youth can engage to feed in the negotiation processes. And today, webinar is also a post-COP sharing program. And afterward, as we are working on the Youth Financing Project, and NDC lies at the heart of Paris Agreement, we are discussing continuously, and we will work now to have the youth priorities on the revised NDCs. And also we'll work to have a ACE national focal point for Nepal. There is no formal ACE national focal point for Nepal, so we will be working to have a focal point specifically for Nepal. So we will be helping us youths to connect the bridge between the politicians and leaders and us, so that we can work in smoothly and feed in each other's process. And the next one is I have told like that we will be meeting with our guardians. That's the guardian means our politicians who works in the supreme body, like the Minister of Forest and Environment, National Climate Change Focal Points, and other several heads. And we will be meeting with our guardians, and so that we will be addressing the gap between youths, and we will be talking about what they expect from us and how we can work together. And the next one is the youth capacity building, which we are doing till date, and we will be also be engaging in the national consultation processes. So this is the short thing I want to present here, and so I'm happy to join here and to share the climate change momentum in Nepal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Shreya, for sharing your experience and the role of your youth organization in climate action in the country. Thank you very much. Again, let us proceed to Ms. Keisha Rodriguez Mawanya from the Philippines on sharing the presentation Stepping Philippines. So Ms. Mawanya is very active in climate engagement in the Philippines. And this is her presentation. Keisha?
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, would you like me to present the slides?
Yeah, can you?
Sorry? Oh, yes, I have the slides. Okay.
Oh, hello everyone. Good afternoon again. So I will be talking about initiatives for climate action here in the Philippines, but I will also highlight about my organization. So here in the Philippines, we have different youth initiatives, different youth-led nonprofit organizations that are doing small steps for climate action. For example, we have John Carl's organization, Climate Educate. We also have here Youth Strike for Climate Philippines, and also some youth-led nonprofit organization in different islands. So I am also part of the Youth for Climate Scholarships last COP25, and I was one of the Young Go Speaker nominees for the opening of the Young Future Generations Day with UNFCCC Secretariat and also the ACE team. And I was also one of the panel with Greta Thunberg and Louisa Newpower addressing the voices of the Global South climate champions. So right now, n- our focus in my organization is all about regeneration, reconnection, climate science, and youth mobilization. So we next please, John. Sorry, my PPT was not updated. So we are youth at oh this one. We STEP stands for Sea and Terrestrial Environment Protectors, and we are officially established last May, and we aim to strengthen youth force, especially by using interactive education, immersion, research, and citizen science here in Central Visayas. Next, please. So yeah, we are a youth-led nonprofit, and we are composed of young leaders, advocates, diverse volunteers, researchers, aspiring environmentalists, and conservationists. Next, please. So, so this is our vision. We envision environmentally mindful, engaged citizens committed in protecting the sea and terrestrial environment of the Philippines. Next, I'm going to skip this one, and I will. This is our mission, so we can go here. Yeah. So right now, our primary focus is ocean-based solutions for climate action. So right now, our projects, our platforms are mainly focusing the ocean as a center for climate action. So last COP25 is very highlighted, and I was so happy that the president recognizes that the ocean has a major influence on climate change and it plays an essential role in climate regulation. And I was so happy that the president herself said that the ocean should be included in the NDCs, especially in developing countries who's vulnerable to climate change, and especially in the Philippines that we are surrounded by waters and we are the second largest archipelago. And right now we are badly affected by sea level rise and ocean acidification and such stuff like coral bleaching and etc. Next, please. So, Philippines, we are considered recognized as the global center of marine biodiversity, and 75 of the identified coral species can be found here in the Philippines. And we are really on top of the coral triangles, and also we are really affected by sea level rise. Right now we have fisheries decline when it comes to fisheries catch and a lot of issues. Next, please. So our main goal is for ocean conservation, protection, and restoration, but we can't do that in a blink of an eye. So we are doing some small steps to address these issues by doing some projects like interactive education, research, citizen science, and also we are teaching basic skills. Next, please. So next, please. So this is our projects. So we are i- yeah, this is our projects. We have a lot of youth-led initiatives right now here in the Philippines. So this is our project last time with DNR7. Next, please. So we also have coral reef assessment here in Cebu because we lack data and we lack research. So right now we are doing some mobilization with divers and free divers for them also to help in citizen science like gathering research for data. Next, please. So I am also a part of the campaign um, of the Save Shark Networks Philippines and Marine Wildlife Watch of the Philippines and Save Philippine Seas. So here in the Philippines, we have approximately 200 species of sharks, but only 21 are protected. So right now we are advocating for them to the Congress and to the House of Representatives to approve the shark conservation bill. And right now it is approved. Next, please. So I will not discuss more about this. I can just skip some of the projects. This is partnership with Greenpeace Philippines. We are doing some brand audit, both in rivers and in the marine ecosystem. We're also doing some cleanups. Next,
Okay,
please.
thank you, Kishan. That was a very interesting presentation for
Mm-hmm.
yes, ocean-based climate solutions. So thank you very much, and this is a very interesting presentation, like most of the speakers have done today. Since we're running out of time, we have to extend 1 hour and 30 minutes. And thank you very much again, Keisha. um,
Okay.
shall we? Okay. Shall we proceed with, since we're running out of time, shall we proceed with highlights and progress of the 25th Conference of Parties and the prospects for the 26th Conference of Parties to the UNFCCC that will be presented by Mr. Manjit Dahal, who is the advisor to the LDC chair to the UNFCCC and also the head of the LDC support team at Climate Analytics. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, sir.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen. Okay, I hope it's working. If not, then you may have to click on the options in at the top of the screen and select my name so that you will see my screen. Thank you very much. It's really a privilege to share with the young colleagues about the outcome of COP25 as well as the prospects for the next year. I used to be a national network coordinator for Nepalese Youth for Climate Action. It's really nice to be back with the young colleague and to share this. Nowadays, I only help Shreya and the team in an advisory role. I have very few slides, of about 4 slides. So the context, is it possible for all to see the screen?
Yes, sir. Okay.
That's great. Thank you. So the context that we had before going to the COP25 was there were a couple of the scientific report that came up, particularly from the World Meteorological Organization, the IPCC, and few others. The fact that we have in front of us is the global atmospheric concentration of greenhouse gas has continued to reach a record level. It's increasing, but there has been no sign in terms of the curve getting downward. Even after the UNFCCC has established the emission has continuously rise, and since 1980, each successive decade has been warmer than any precedent decade from where the measurement has started, from the pre, and then also the date that we refer as a pre-industrial age. So this shows that we are at the very difficult stage. We are in the brink of missing the opportunity to limit the warming to 1.5 degree. So what Paris decided was country to submit the country's plan, where they can come up with their action plan in terms of reducing emission, taking forward the adaptation action, and number of other activities in terms of climate action. If we review all those indices, then they are not able to take us to 1.5 degree. The assessment of the target that the countries have presented in their NDC lead us to have a temperature rise up to more than 3 degrees Celsius by the end of this century. So so in terms of the figure, what we have in front of us is the emissions from the current NDC will take us up to 56 gigaton by 2030. By 2030, the carbon budget that we have in front of us is only 25 gigaton. This means we are not in track of limiting the temperature to 1.5 degree. Uh, to make this happen, the World Meteorological Organization has made it very clear that the country have to reduce their emission 50%, the global emission have to be reduced by 50% by 2030, which means every year from 2020 to 2030, every year 7.6% of the emission has to be reduced, so that only we can have a temperature limit of 1.5 degree. We don't have a luxury of time of 2050 or by the end of century, because there is a high chance of overshoot if the immediate action cannot be taken in the near time frame, and particularly by from 2020 to 2030, then there is a high risk. So when we went to the COP25, so what progress or the highlights that we saw in terms of the negotiation? One of the key tasks of COP25 was to finalize the rule of carbon market, which is referred as Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, which also includes the non-carbon market mechanism, but also particularly focusing on the carbon market mechanism. And this was the key mandate which the negotiator were not able to finalize. Therefore, this issue has been transferred for the next year. The discussion will again continue at the session in June in Bonn, and has now been carried forward to be decided next year in Glasgow. The key issue here remain the carryover of the emission by countries before 2020 or during the Kyoto phase. Just to take a few examples, there were some developed countries who have assigned amount units under the Kyoto Protocol, which means the units that those countries have bought during the Kyoto period. They want to count those units during the Paris Agreement period. There are few developing countries who have accumulated huge amount of CERs, carbon credit units, and they also want to use this during the Kyoto phase. If this is allowed, we will not be on a track of reducing emission to 1.5 degree, and emission will only be reduced in the numbers, in a mathematical term, but not in an atmosphere. So that was one of the main reason, and which also leads to the double counting. So this issue will remain in the negotiation to be resolved in next year. The famously known Rule 16, which is the 16 number rule under the rule of procedure of the UNFCCC, the convention, which means if any agenda item doesn't get agreed in the session, will automatically get to an agenda of the next session. So there were 15 agenda items that were not agreed in this session. So this was the one of the main reason that many commented or blamed COP25 as a failure. And then one of the key in terms of the items that was where Rule 16 was applied was long-term climate finance, the common time frame for NDCs, and there were registry for NDC and number of other. So this also leads some of the developing country in terms of not getting confidence in terms of finance to be mobilized in future, or how the finance agenda will get forward. On a little hope, on a very little positive hope, the overarching decision, one CMA decided have a provision where it has reiterated invitation for countries to communicate NDCs by 2020, reflecting the highest possible ambition. So this will be the NDC, this will be the update of the NDC that country have already submitted. So hopefully the country will follow this provision. This is not a strong provision. This is in terms of the UNFCCC, the legal language, this is not a strong call. This is just a reiteration of the earlier invitation of COP21 in Paris. So here we may need a strong the pressure or the the call from the wider civil society, including youth, to the countries in terms of raising their ambition. The other important in terms of the developing country was the discussion on the loss and damage, the Warsaw International Mechanism. The Warsaw International Mechanism hasn't been able to function adequately to address the needs of the developing country. So the COP25 was mandated to review the working modality or the function of the WIM, which has been concluded. However, and by establishing some of by expanding the institutions within the WIM, but the major issue within the loss and damage was about where the discussion on loss and damage will lie, within the Paris Agreement or within the convention. The crunch issue inside this is, if this issue will only be discussed under the Paris Agreement, then there is a provision under the Paris Agreement called paragraph 51, which will not allow the discussion about the compensation and the liability. So there were countries who wants to take forward all the discussion related to WIM to the Paris Agreement. This issue has not been resolved and has been postponed to COP26. Again, the other issues that got postponed. There was some progress in some of the finance-related agenda item called the guidance to the GCF, guidance to the Global Environmental Facility, some progress in terms of the gender exit plan and few other agenda item. So overall, it seems, as I mentioned earlier, 15 agenda items were formally postponed. Article 6 was postponed on a procedural manner, and the governance of the WIM was also postponed for the next session. My second last slide, the observation or the reaction that we saw after the COP was one of the strong observation that came from the UN Secretary General, who was disappointed with the result of COP25. He's disappointed also seems very much to the countries who were not faithful with the scientific facts, who were kind of manipulating the information, or not being faithful to the future of the humanity, the way the issues is emerging. There was also the strong disconnect between the state of urgency and the country's instance, the position that the country has taken in the negotiation. We also saw very strongly that a few countries ignoring the scientific facts, as I said earlier, manipulating the scientific findings. Also, we saw many countries not acknowledging the way the climate impacts are growing around the world, and also particularly the voice of the youth that brought us a hope and also a pressure to the government. To some extent was helpful, but to some extent was also not being able to reflect in the real negotiation. So many interpreted COP25 as another year of failure, the COP as a carryover COP, the COP as a Rule 16, and so on. But the good thing is we have a hope for the multilateralism, because at least there was a very strong sense at the final day when the COP got extended up to 42 hours that this COP will not deliver anything, and it will continue to the next session. At least that didn't happen. So the multilateralism has there is a hope, and it is light. So we have a hope that COP26 will deliver. My final slide in terms of COP26, 2020 is an important year ahead. We have to finalize the important agenda item that are remaining under the Paris Agreement, particularly the rules on the market. It has to bring back the hope to the multilateralism process, the multilateral process. It has to address the urgency and the call for action. Some changes may be required in terms of the UNFCCC process, particularly on the time management, the way the COP was getting delayed on the final day was really not helpful. Particularly for many developing countries, it was very difficult to extend their tickets, and for other logistic reason. So there were very few delegates in the room when the final decision was taken. Particularly in the next year, the major polluters must take a lead in terms of reducing emission, and the developing country also get a confidence in terms of support so that climate action can be implemented in developing countries together with the development priorities. We must keep up with the momentum and focus on the number of meetings and the milestones that are leading to COP26. There are major events happening. Before I conclude, also an appreciation to the youth activism around the world that has helped to raise momentum throughout the year, and also to build pressure for the government to take action. This must continue in the coming year. And the key area remain for the next year is for the country to update NDC that must reflect the higher ambition and NDC to be submitted by 2020. Here I will conclude my presentation and will be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, Mr. Manji. It's now time for our interaction session. So due to limited time, we will only have around 10 minutes. Okay, so we'd like to state the first question from Mr. Viren. And he asks about what about the regular session in Bonn, Germany? What progress can be made there? Again, the question is regarding what is about the regular session in Bonn, probably the SB52, and what is the probable progress that could be made there? That is a question for Mr. Man.
Thank you. The June session is one of the regular session. As it was mentioned, the UNFCCC usually have a two session. One in the middle of the year to take forward the discussion where only the two subsidiary bodies will be meeting, the subsidiary body for implementation and the subsidiary body for scientific and technical advice. So the agenda items that are mandated under these two bodies will be discussed here. So in relation to what happened at COP25, the Article 6, the rules for the carbon market will be discussed under SubSTA at the June session, and there are a number of other regular business that will continue. But overall, the June session will also help to shape how the discussion will proceed at COP26 and where we will be heading onwards. At the June session, we will also see a proactive leadership of the upcoming COP presidency, and in this case is the UK leadership. So with that will be an opportunity for us also to interact and also to get sense of how the discussion will proceed at COP26.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for that answer. And any other questions from our audience or from the speakers regarding what are the prospects and what are the outcomes of the recent COP25? In my point of view, the COP25 had various problems before it was hosted. First in Chile, and then there's a lot of chaos that have taken place before the hosting of the government of Chile, and then it was moved to Madrid. So it's very interesting, and that Europe has hosted 3 conference of parties, UNFCCC, UNFCCC COPs since 2017, if I'm right. The first one is in Bonn. It was hosted in behalf of the Republic of Fiji, and then in 2018, that was in 2018 was in 2018. Okay, so that was 2018. I forgot who hosted 2018 actually, and then just recently it was hosted in Spain. So next year will be the stocktake for most countries that are parties to the UNFCCC. So I would like to ask, sir, if what is what is the most, what are the prospects of having COP26 and a stocktake in the United Kingdom? Do you see any progress that that would be a game changer in the climate talks? Because as I have heard that multilateralism is a major challenge in the climate negotiations. So, do you see any prospects that will be made, that there will be change in the talks, especially on loss and damage and NDC submissions?
Thank you. There are some aspects that are technical and that are related to the UNFCCC process, but there are some aspects that are wider, to some extent, not in our control. In terms of the technical issues within the UNFCCC, yes, obviously the priority will be how to finalize the rules on Article 60 and Article 6, and this is an issue that has been postponed since 2018 Katuasi and
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions from? Okay, so okay, thank you very much. There's a correction. 2018 was hosted by Poland. Thank you very much, Ms. Treya. And then, okay, so, okay, 2011 is COP 2017 in Durban, South Africa. Yes, I said that I'd like to clarify that I mentioned in 2017, COP was hosted in Bonn, Germany, in behalf of the Republic of Fiji. Okay, so there's a question from Miss Elizabeth. Okay, so just for logistical purposes, won't visa be a problem in the United Kingdom? Okay, does anyone would like to answer that? Or does anyone have any prior knowledge regarding that? I think it's regarding accreditation when it comes accreditation and visa processes. Sir, Manjit, Mr. Manjit, do you have any idea about this? Okay, so far I think as based on my prior knowledge, visa varies per the diplomatic policy of the United Kingdom per country. I think it varies per country. So if a country hosts a COP, I think there will be considerations that will be made for those who will join the conference of parties. So maybe this time, maybe tomorrow, I mean, sorry, maybe next year, the UK government could create a more flexible a policy on providing a visa, but it's just a prospect. It's not a a guess. I mean, it's not an official statement, but we're just prospecting because it's usually being done all the way. I mean, in the previous years in countries that have hosted COP before. Okay. Okay, so there's a question from Ms. Shreya. So what can be the best ways to engage yourselves in the decision-making process? She would like to, she would love to hear from other youth speakers. Okay, let us start with, okay, Ms. Kisha, would you like to say something? Okay. So because while we engage in climate action, as said by Ms. Shreya, we rarely get opportunity in influencing the negotiators. That's true. Most of the time, youth voice are not being taken seriously by negotiating parties. So I think what are the best ways to engage ourselves as members of the youth sector in getting in influencing or maybe bringing our voice to the main players of the negotiations. Okay, anyone who would like to share their insights and perspectives?
Yes, can I go ahead?
Sure, of course.
Okay, I just want to respond to Shreya, and that is true. Most of the time, you find that we get funding to attend COP, but we cannot participate in negotiations at times.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Elizabeth. Yeah, that's true. But some countries,
And
I'm not.
because we do not have, we simply to participate in these negotiations because people who would have funded you might not allow you to participate in negotiation. But I just want to give an example. In Africa this year, they came up with the junior negotiators program where people had to apply to participate, and they shortlisted 4 young people from Africa who they trained 3 months prior COP to come and participate at the COP as negotiators. So they had different issues they were following. Some were following issues to do with gender and climate action. Some were following climate finance, and some were following the global stock check. So I think this is this is a very good idea, but we now need to come back home where we now need to engage our decision leaders, our governments, to at least come up with a program like that, where they select a few individuals, young people, they can train prior the COP on how these negotiations are done and what exactly they mean by negotiations and the issues that will be on the table, negotiated on the table. Sort of like a small training program for young people that are into climate action. They train them, they mentor them that this is what is done when you attend such big conferences, so that when we go, we know exactly what we are negotiating about. And we can as well pass on these habits, and we can pass on these good practices to other young people who are also interested in these issues. Thank you, I'm done.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Elizabeth. Okay, so yes, Ms. Keisha. Okay, so yes, here in the Philippines, they're trying to converse with some non-government organizations to negotiate to having an official youth delegation for the LCOI next year. So maybe they will have a plan to have an intergenerational climate summit. Okay. All right. So there is a question from other. Okay. So there's a question from from our friends from NYCA. So they were asking about if COP25 was really a failure. Okay. It would be best to ask this from the people who have been in COP25 recently. Anyone who would like to provide some insights? I will give my insights as well, but it would be best for someone who have been in the negotiations. Okay. Ms. Shreya, would you like to provide your insights regarding the question, is COP25 really a failure?
Thank you, John. Thank you, NYC, Pawan. It's like that. I shared the same thing yesterday in the green discussion series also. It's like that. I don't want to mention COP25 as a failure because there was something that was achieved, like the Zero Action Plan, and also there was the revision in the Warsaw International Mechanism of Loss and Damage. But it was like that. There was no much achievements in the must. It's like that. We were trying to see have more negotiations and more achievements on Article 6. which was not there, but I don't want to mention COP25 as a failure.
Very much. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Rhea, for your insights. Mr. Viren, would you like to provide your insight if COP25 was really a failure?
Okay, so it was my first COP, but in general, COP conferences, we can see them as a process. So maybe this COP was not that good as the one in 2015, of course, and I guess no one other will be. But also, as we spoke with some of the official delegates, they said there are small COPs and big COPs, and somehow they were prepared that the next one, 2020, is going to be a big COP, and it's going to be much more important. We see why countries cannot agree on matters such as like common timeframes and long-term finance. It is obvious. And also in terms of youth, I don't think it's a failure because youth is getting stronger, it is enlarging, and more people are engaged. So I see it as a process, and maybe it's a weak point, but it's not a weak process. What is important? Yes, we started from there, how we can engage youth more actively. Again, I would say like with more personal interaction with high-level officials. Otherwise, we are just preparing the youth, which are going to be the next high-level officials. But in this way, we are going to lose time. So if we can find ways to include youth, young people into the work of the NDCs, for example, is going to be most efficient.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Viren. Anyone else would like to provide their insights if COP25 is really a failure? Well, that's a very interesting question. Just like Mr. Viren said, that there are big COPs and small COPs, and 2015 was a very big COP, and probably next year that will be a very big COP, since it will be a stock take. And a stock take is this is a very the first major stock take, which will take place in Glasgow in Scotland. So we look forward for it, and maybe we can also look forward for the Substa and the SB52. I think that will be in Germany, probably around May 2020. They will take charge of preparing the agenda prior to the conference of parties that will happen around November or December. Okay, there is another question from NYCA Communication. I hope this is the very last one, because I think we have exceeded time already. Okay, so the question is there any agenda raised for the vulnerable communities as well as minimizing land degradation? Anyone? Does anyone have any idea regarding this? Again, I will. The question is there any agenda raised for the vulnerable communities as well as minimizing land degradation? Okay, I think I'm not sure about the agenda that was raised. Does anyone have any idea regarding this? Okay, so far as I have understood, I think this is part of UNFCCC. I'm not sure, but that's how I understood it. This is the mandate regarding fighting desertification. Is that what you meant regarding the question? So it's probably regarding land use. Okay, so probably it is it was discussed under the banner of the UNCCD, or the UN Combat Against Desertification. So I think the fight for climate change is interdisciplinary, and the most of in the environmental and social issues are bound to each other, and the solutions that we need to do is to support policymakers on actions that would favor the stabilization of the climate, and as well as providing environmental justice and opportunities for everyone. And I think that is what climate action really is. So, okay. I think, does anyone have any final questions? Okay, Mr. Manjit is not with us due to unstable internet. Thank you very much, Mr. Manjit, for your time. So to clarify with everyone, LDCs means the least developed countries, and the role of LDCs are very critical in the climate negotiations. And I hope that next year, let's hope next year that the voice of developing countries will be heard much stronger this time. I mean, there have been issues with how developing countries are being treated by other big players. So I hope that there will be a more stronger voice for developing countries, because most of the developing countries are those who are very vulnerable in climate change. And okay. All right. Okay. I think we need to end now. All right. So thank you very much for the time, everyone. And it has been a very productive and a very fruitful conversation regarding the post-COP25 webinar, post-COP25 engagement regarding the 2019 UNFCCC processes and global climate action. Thank you very much, and we look forward to have another webinar again next time. And thank you very much for your time.